You're retired, you want to turn your capital into a steady stream of income. That is a tough, tough assignment, but I've got an answer for it. The reason it's tough is that yields on bank accounts, yields on U.S. Treasury bonds, yields on anything are terrible. They're low, and there's a reason for that. It's because good old Ben Bernanke of the Federal Reserve has decided to engage in a giant social engineering experiment. And this experiment has him keeping interest rates at zero just so that condo flippers, speculators, and hedge funds can pay no interest when they want to borrow money. And the other half of that is that when retired people want to save money and put it in the bank and earn interest, they don't get any interest. Question, what is it that Ben Bernanke has against old people? Other question, what can we do about it? It's the second question that I'm going to answer. I've got a 5-part solution to your problem. I'm going to have you buy some stock ETFs, some junk bonds, some high dividend stocks. I'm going to have you put a little bit of your money into tax-exempt municipal bonds. And the last part of it is annuities, which sounds boring, but it's going to be a real exciting return for you. I think you should take about 1/4 of your savings and put it into the stock market in the form of stock index funds. The reason for that is you get a little bit of growth, and there's a way to get better yield than you think you can get on the stock market. Let's just take 2 of these index ETFs. I'm going to write down their tickers. VT is a World Stock Index Fund. SPY is a fund that buys S&P 500 stocks. Now, if you look up the yields in the paper, the yield is only about 2% on either one of these things. I want you to get a 5% yield out of that, and I have a formula, a way to get another 3% out of each of them. It's very simple. You just sell 3% of your position every year. So if you have $100,000 in stock index funds, and they seem to be only yielding you an income of $2,000, take the $2,000 and then sell $3,000 worth of your shares every year. You'll get, in total, a $5,000 income out of your stock market. Why is that legitimate? It's legitimate because stocks grow over time. And I think you can easily get 5% total return on the stock market. As long as you can withstand a certain amount of volatility, this is a way to get a higher yield. Not happy with a crummy 2% return you can get on a U.S. Treasury bond, which is pretty safe? How about getting 7% or more on a junk bond fund? There's one from Vanguard, for example, which has a 7.3% yield. Now, junk is risky. Some of your money gets lost. Some of your principal evaporates in defaults. I allow for that. Put down 1.6% as the kind of loss you can expect over time per year from defaults. That still gives you a 5.7% return. That's not bad if you can stand the risk of owning junk bonds. I think you should put some of your money into high dividend stocks. Now, stocks, you know, just general stocks, tend to yield about 2%, which is tough to live on. You can find stocks that pay 3%, 4%, or 5%. There's a bunch of them out there, some good companies. For example, Chevron, Con Edison, Microsoft. There are a lot of them out there. If you don't want to buy individual stocks, you can buy an ETF that will own high dividend stocks. Here are 2 of them, both from iShares. They yield around 3.9% on their portfolio. They clip you 0.4% for overhead. That still gives you 3.5%. That's not bad. You can do the full 3.9% if you have the guts and the talent and the capital to buy your own stocks, like the ones I mentioned, and a lot more. If you want to have them do it for you, you got to pay a little bit. That's still better than the 2% return you get on the average stock. Besides stocks and junk bonds, you ought to consider owning a little bit of tax-exempt municipal bonds. You put these, of course, in your taxable account. And a municipal bond fund can yield as much as 4 or 5%. There's one from Vanguard, for example, that yields 4.3%. But a lot of these bonds have abnormally high coupons these days. They're going to run down. You're probably going to lose 1% over time to that kind of decline in interest rates. You might get a true return of 3.3% on this muni bond fund. But if you wanted to, you could spend the whole 4.3%. If you understand that your yield, your income, and your principal will shrink a little bit, maybe 1% a year. For some of your money, I think you ought to take a chance on life, on a long life, buy an annuity. And you win this bet if you live to be 101. I hope you do. Here's how it works. You put down a lump sum. It might be $100,000. You go to an insurance company, you say, turn this into a monthly income stream. It might be, $615. In fact, that's exactly what you can get from one insurance company if you're a 70-year-old male in New York State. Now, multiply that out. That is a 7.4% return. Now, why is that a good bet? Because this thing will last as long as you do. If you're 97 years old and still running up nursing home bills, this will cover it. Of course, the bad thing is it dies when you do, which means that if you buy it when you're 71 and you get run over by a cab the next day, you're going to think, gee, that was a rotten deal. Here's what it boils down to. Don't let the Treasury take all your money. Spread your bets around. Don't just buy safe U.S. Treasury bonds. Take a few risks. It's okay if you spread your risks. You know what you're going in for. You know there's volatility. You can live better.